we're not talking about our appearance. I'm not talking about what you look like in a mirror. I'm not talking about how much you can bench press. I'm not talking about how fast you can run. We're not talking about appearance. We're talking about capacity. Are we fit to do kingdom work? 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12. Paul goes right in and he is attacking some philosophical arguments of the day. He says, everything is permissible for me, but he says it in quotes. Everything is permissible for me. This is kind of a belief that was going on in the town of Corinth, that because I have received the free gifts of grace, because I am no longer under the law, because Jesus has forgiven me no matter what, is I can do whatever I want. Sometimes a lot of us have been tempted to believe the same things, that everything is permissible for me. But Paul says, but not everything is beneficial. And isn't that true? You can do what you want. You have the right as a human being to choose to do whatever it is that you want. But not everything is beneficial. You guys know this. I've learned this over the last couple of weeks, that if I stay up past 8:30 p.m., it's not beneficial the next day. Everything is permissible, not everything is beneficial. And he goes on and he says, everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. Here's the next one: food for the stomach and stomach for the food. But what does it matter? Because God will destroy them both. In other words, food for the stomach, stomach for the food, whatever, everything is fine because God's gonna destroy this kind of physical reality anyway. As long as we believe the right things, we'll end up with him in heaven in the future. We get to go to heaven and escape this cruel, evil place. So food for the stomach, stomach for the food, whatever. So Paul goes right at it. He says the body, he's talking about the body, the flesh. The body is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. Listen to this. He says, by his power, God raised the Lord from the dead, then he will raise us also. We just talked about this, that God raised Jesus from the dead in a physical body. In the same way that Jesus was raised back to life, in that future reality when Jesus comes back and we receive the resurrection, we will also be raised in a physical body. The body that you carry around, the flesh and blood your soul doesn't go to some other place. Your body comes back. It's your physical self. That's what's going to happen. And he says, do you not know, verse 15, do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ himself? Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute? No, never, he says. Do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh. But he who unites himself with the Lord is one with him in spirit. And then Paul says it's not just enough to say no. This is kind of the sermon within the sermon. It's not just enough to say no to sexual immorality. He says to flee from it. And all other sins a man commits are outside his body, but he who sins sexually sins against his own body. Listen, he says, do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? And do not miss this, you are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your what? What? Body. Honor God with your body. Not just what you believe, not just what you know, but we honor God with our body. It's fascinating that Paul uses the metaphor of the temple here in this passage. It says, do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit? If you could have visited the temple at the time that the Apostle Paul was writing this, or around the time, I mean, it was the most ornate, elaborate, beautiful structure in Jerusalem, in Israel, in the Middle East, really. It was cared for and taken after. I mean, thousands of people took care of the temple. And what's fascinating is that all throughout Jewish history, the temple was the place where God's place, God's presence, God's realm, and the earthly one intersected. That the spiritual reality and the physical reality overlapped in the temple. that God's presence resided in what we call the Holy of Holies. The temple was the center of everyday life. You went to the temple every single day. If you didn't go to the temple, it was more than likely because you were working on cleaning yourself from some kind of uncleanliness, but your goal was to always to get back to the temple, to participate in the temple life. The temple represented God's presence. It represented what God might do. It represented God's presence in your family life and the life of the community and the life of the city. I mean, the temple was the centerpiece of reality. But more than anything, the temple in a lot of ways represented potential. What could God do? What might God do? What is God doing today in our lives? It's where God's presence resided. And Paul says, your bodies are temple. If you've chosen to follow Jesus, listen, if you've chosen to follow Jesus, if you've made that commitment and you've received God's Spirit in your life, your physical body is the place where heaven and earth overlap. In you, in your physical body, you see our bodies represent potential. What could we do? What should we do? We're capable of so many things to do the right thing. We're capable of doing the wrong things. Sometimes we're capable of doing no things. Sounds nice, kind of, But our bodies represent potential. Dallas Willard says it's unreleased energy, unreleased potential. Our bodies have the potential to do all kinds of things. And this is where I think this conversation begins to diverge from popular fitness culture and a kingdom-minded approach to fitness. Because when it comes to what we're talking about today, we're not talking about our appearance. I'm not talking about what you look like in a mirror. I'm not talking about how much you can bench press. I'm not talking about how fast you can run. We're not talking about appearance. We're talking about capacity. Are we fit to do kingdom work? Listen, the Apostle Paul, he actually writes this to another group of Christians in Rome. In Romans chapter 6, this is what he says. I'll read this. He says, do not let any part of your body become an instrument of evil, so to serve sin. In other words, you have potential. You have the potential to allow parts of your body to serve sin, to be instruments of evil. This word instrument is actually the word in Greek weapon, that your body can be a weapon of evil. And he goes on and, he says, instead, give yourselves completely to God, for you were dead, but now you have new life. So use your what? Whole body as an instrument, as a weapon to do what is right for the glory of God. Did you notice this? He says, you have been given a new life. You were once dead, and now you are alive. In the same way that God raised Jesus back to life, one day he will do it for us as well. But if you've been given a new life, if you've chosen to follow Jesus, there's a new life, there's a new way of living, there's new responsibilities. You have new things that you're supposed to do, that you've been challenged to do, that you've been given to do, to be obedient, to do things. That to be a member of the kingdom means to do kingdom work. Give your whole body to Christ.